Right, okay, so welcome everyone. This speaker event is hosted by Yale Fashion House. I'm co-president, my name's Alessandra. We have Liam, Atara, Madison, Janara, Sarah, a bunch of us here from Yale Fashion House, and we are hosting Matteo and Sara, both from Italy. I think Sara's in Istanbul right now, but both Italians, so we welcome you. I'm going to give a little bit of a quick background as I'm letting people in as well. But give a quick little background on Matteo and also Sara. So Matteo is the CEO and co-founder of WRAD, which is an innovative education and design studio dedicated to sustainable innovation and social change. To provide a little bit more background, he graduated in international economics at Bocconi University in 2008. And prior to co-founding WRAD, he pursued a 6-year career with Abercrombie & Fitch. In addition to this impressive background, Matteo is often called as public speaker at international forums. He's spoken at the United Nations, TED Talks, Wired, and of course now here at Yale, which we welcome you. I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank you, Alessandra.
Yes, of course. Sara, so this is Sara Sozzani Maino. Her fashion career began in 1991 as an intern at Vogue Italia. She's now currently the deputy director of Vogue Italia and head of Vogue Talents. Vogue Talents is both an editorial and online project. She also focuses on social media and sustainability as emphasis in her career. In addition, she serves as a judge in several fashion competitions, and since September 2018, she's been an international brand ambassador for, I'm gonna maybe butcher this, but Camera Nazionale della Moda Italiana.
Awesome.
Yes, and we're really excited to have you on board as well, and we're going to ask you some questions, gain a little bit more knowledge just from your guys' experience. So we're super excited to have you here. And I'll give you both the stage, Matteo, and then Sara. Could you give us a background about yourself and why you chose to begin this path of making fashion sustainable?
Sarah?
I go? Okay, I thought it was you going. Okay.
I was like, no, of course. For me,
Thank you. No, so, thank you all for being here, and thank you for Yale to host us. As Alessandra was saying, I've been in the industry for a long time, but I have to say, I mean, to make it kind of brief, the fact of thinking in a more responsible way, it's something that came up to me as an interest, like I would say 6 or 7 years ago, and then put it into action in the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm not really kind of, I feel kind of still very sophomore in this in this industry and of being, you know, responsible. But I was, you know, also considering the fact that working in the fashion industry, which is one of the major causes of the climate change on what's happening, you know, to our planet. I thought that since having a voice and after so many years of working in the industry and having also a position of, I mean, it's not just about being deputy director of the magazine, but also having a position of someone that, you know, shares awareness and thoughts. I think that it's very important that media such as, you know, Vogue or Condé Nast gives, you know, gives the message of how to be responsible and conscious. And at the same time, I realized that throughout the years, I was also promoting something which wasn't responsible. But at the same time, I'm here to say that, I mean, being sustainable 100%, it's impossible for how the world it is now. And I think, and this is something that I lately say, that we live in a planet which is ill right now, and we need just to cure it. So curating, it's meaning doing things each of us every day, thinking more responsible, because it's a lot of us. And then obviously there's the industry that needs to change, but we cannot think, you know, Matteo and I, especially also Matteo, I think he's been in talks with, in conference and talks, and there's always this kind of manifesto saying, we need to change, we need to, you know, don't need that, don't need do, I mean, which is yes, but there's always, you know, the middle part, and the middle part is the most difficult one, because it's always easy to say, I stopped doing that, but it's not meaning that everyone else stops. So creating awareness is fundamental. So this is why I decided to follow this path throughout supporting the new generation, which is our future.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you. To you, Matteo.
Yeah. Thank you again. It's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, guys. You mentioned earlier, Alessandra, I did have a career in the corporate retail business for almost 7 years. I started off when I was 22 in London with ANF, and then I moved to Milan, and I was part of the expansion program of the brand in Europe. And in 2013, I started to really get myself involved with the sphere of diversity and inclusion and corporate social responsibility. I was always, invested in that, but for the first time, also from a professional level, I was able to put that into practice, and that's when I started to realize and become more aware of the true cost and the true impact from a social environmental perspective of what we as an industry were doing. I was absolutely blindfolded before around the true cost of our action, of our decisions, or even having KPIs that were designed to make us sell more jeans and more t-shirts that nobody absolutely needed. Jeans and t-shirts that didn't take in the factor in the true cost of climate change, the true cost of water, the true cost of clean air, the true cost of land. And that realization brought me to a tip point in 2015 when I was like, look, Matteo, what you're doing is not in line with who you want to be. Who do you want to be? I know who I want to be. How you're going to achieve it, I don't know. I had to quit my job, challenge myself, exit my comfort zone. And as I did that, I founded WRAD on a promise to enable myself and others going forward to continue to challenge the status quo and push the industry forward. Sara said something very important. Full sustainability today is not possible. Everyone who claims, we're doing sustainable fashion, we're doing the zero impact thing, we're doing the 100% green t-shirt, whatever it is, that's just marketing. The truth is the industry is far right now from being close to the notion of sustainable development as the definition wants, and as sustainable development is defined. Everyone is in transition. We all are in transition, from whether we're customers, whether we are leaders in the industry, whether we're managing, whether we're all part of supply chain the moment we purchase clothing. And I don't see everyone here, but I'm pretty sure everyone is wearing at least one piece of clothing today and every day. Therefore, we're all part of this huge supply chain. We all have a responsibility going forward to figure out how to catalyze true change through what we purchase and wear every day. And this is what, with WRAD, we've been on a journey since day one, through an educational program first, by transforming WRAD into a innovative startup and R&D program. Second, we started developing our own in-house technologies to figure out how to tackle some of the problems the fashion supply chains, have created. And then third, with our own design studio, through which we develop clothing, innovative clothing with some cool peculiarities to it, and also curating events and consultancy programs, and being very involved specifically in the field of communication, which has a lot of potential today, in my opinion, to catalyze change.
Thank you so much, both of you. And from here on, I will ask some questions, and then feel free to put some questions in the chat if you have any, and we'll get to that at the end of the session. So for both of you, as you were saying, Matteo, it's a little bit difficult to kind of see if it's just marketing or if it's an authentic mission that this company is pursuing. How do you determine if the company is actually, working towards a more sustainable future? How can you figure that out?
Yeah, well, first of all, as I said, we're all in transition. So it is not that easy for big companies, as you can imagine, to turn their business models upside down on in 24 hours. But if the intentions are there, if there's true motivation, and you can set up a program where you have short-term, middle-term, and objectives. I don't want to say long-term because we need to have a bit of a more sense of urgency, in my opinion, in how we're transforming good intentions into tangible actions, and being radically honest and transparent about your path forward. That means admitting, obviously, achievements and being rightfully proud of the achievements you have achieved, which doesn't mean boasting, but it means, we have achieved this and we're proud of it. But at the same time, letting the customer know what is still missing. What are you still working on? What are the opportunities you want to tackle? And what are your plans to solve some of the issues you're still going to have to face going forward? And I'm saying this because what I see today a lot, unfortunately, is a lot of brands coming out with the sustainable sneaker, the t-shirt that can save the planet, the pants that can clean water from plastic pollution. These are very big claims. And, when you have such a big claim and you don't have proof or substantiation with data, certifications, real programs, then you don't have a holistic systemic plan in place. You're not fully transparent about how you achieve certain results and where you want to go forward. That inconsistency, that vagueness, it should inspire all of us to dig a little bit deeper and see if there's some facts, the real facts behind these claims.
Thank you so much, Matteo. I'm not sure if you have anything to add on that, Sara, but kind of in a similar vein, how can we make sustainable fashion accessible to everyone? Both monetarily and just actual accessibility.
You always get the easy questions.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, obviously, I don't want to simplify it, but just take in consideration that we all live in a society where we have been used to spend money, mostly, I have to say, in the wrong way, towards also buying food which wasn't of quality, clothes which, where you were buying clothes and nobody, which I'm putting also myself until a few years ago, was not even, asking themselves who was, doing the clothes or what was happening behind that, that item that you were buying. And I do think that, this fact of saying that to buy responsible clothing is expensive is just hiding behind the finger. It's just not accepting something which is natural, because we are not saying that it's extremely expensive. The problem is that people are used to buy extremely cheap without knowing what it's behind. So that's the main problem. And this is why media such as us, I say, or myself, which I do not just do media, but I do other projects, has really the responsibility and the conscious of creating awareness, to all the people outside, which are you today listening to us, but also you already fortunate slice of the people, because then there are the normal people, meaning that they don't have any, I'm not saying they're not, they are not smart or nothing, but they're probably attracted to others and they're not conscious about what they're buying. And always take an example, which Marina Spadafora always says, when you go, to the market and you buy grocery, 80% of you, I'm sure, that if they buy something new, the first thing is turn around and see what's in it. And this has to happen also for clothing. So the fact of saying being responsible is expensive, yes, but then what's the problem? Which is the problem? Because now we are not responsible, we are buying cheap, and we have, the lives of people on our, on our responsibility. So I think it's a matter of society and of changing the mind of buying less and buying more conscious, because we do not need to buy so much. So this is a problem of a system that needs to change, and it's going to take a long time. But that's why I think that if each of us do small changes in their routine, it's already something big, which could be, I don't buy plastic bottles, and and I use and the fact of trying, when I go to the grocery, and I order something, I'm always so so astonished about the quantity of plastic that food is, wrapped in. So I think it's more about, putting your conscious in front of a mirror and thinking about it. So going back to your question, Alessandra, yes, it's more expensive, but it's not an excuse of not buying it, because you're buying more quality. So you buy 2 t-shirts, which instead of buying it at €5 or €8, which means that someone is working at not even €2 a day. I mean, you buy a t-shirt at least €25 and it lasts, and it's square one. So it's really a matter of mentality and getting used to something. I mean, we get used different. We get used when we have a PC. We have, until the 90s, everyone worked on PC. Then Mac came over, and then it was a shock because you didn't know how to use it. So it's the same, when you have a new telephone, and it's getting used to things.
Yeah, definitely. A question that kind of just came to my mind when you were speaking then is, how do you think made to order kind of that phenomenon will help in sustainable practices? I've seen a lot of designers incorporate that more often recently. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on that.
Well, made to order is a different way of saying, made to order, or, just, it's that part of, craftsmanship that once, especially in Italy, you saw that you had, you went to go and do your suit with oddio, il sarto now.
Taylor.
With the tailor. And so you did your suit, which costed probably 3 times what a normal suit would cost but it lasted. So made to order, it's something which belongs really to the new generation, because it's a way of showing your collection, and a way also to experiment and understand the market without overproduction, which anyways it's a cost, which when you have, when you're in your mid-20s or even early 30s and you decide to start your project, I mean, you need money, and most of the time that's the problem. So made to order can be also a sustainable way towards the brand, to understand the market. But then, especially in the fashion industry, they wrong completely and in a opposite wrong direction. So made to order, sustainability, storytelling, and I don't know, it becomes all words which, if you put the real meaning, storytelling, everyone loved, they say, oh, it's storytelling, but nobody does it. So made to order is something, something else. It's another word that it looks cool, but most of, of especially the medium big brands use it just because it's a word that stays, and said, oh wow, made to order, that's cool, let's buy it. So this is also a problem.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And
for both of you, what are your predictions for the future of sustainable fashion? What do you, I guess, ask of us? Like, what's your advice to, push this towards a more sustainable future without all the cliches of the word? Yeah.
The word per se, to me, is an oxymoron today. I know it's a lot of people use this. They say we talk about sustainable fashion. We're here talking about sustainable fashion, but in reality, we have to understand that that's the destination. Right now, the way fashion is engineered is part of a system which is per se unsustainable, because think about the fashion industry as a box. I always use this example. It's a box that takes from a middle circle, which is society, some resources, and takes from an outer circle, which is the environment, other resources. Natural resources are clean air, water, land, animals. From the social circle, we take culture, heritage, we take our time, our experience. And what does the circle give back? when, the answer, what does the circle give back, will make us understand how the future and the role of clothing will have to change, because the status quo, the reality is that the fashion industry is giving back to society. You could argue wealth, because it pays some salaries. Yes, it does. It pays the salaries for millions of people worldwide, but this wealth is extremely unequally distributed. We have more than 65 billion garment workers around the world who do not even receive a living wage. They just receive a minimum wage, which is not sufficient to guarantee basic needs such as education, food, and health and schooling, and so on and so forth. It gives us back clothing. Yes, we're all getting dressed, but it gives us back 100 billion tons of clothing. And who needs all of this stuff? It gives us back health issues, plenty, unfortunately. Both skin issues. This is the UN data. Around 7 to 8% of all skin diseases in the children and age group is at this point linked to the chemicals that are adopted to dye and finish our clothing. It gives us back waste that we cannot recycle. More than 70% of the clothing that are made are unrecyclable by design, because we use a mix of fibers that are impossible to disassemble. So all of this to make you understand that we're very, very far. I mean, it could go on forever, but the status quo is very far from claiming that sustainability tag. So the role of clothing has to be completely redefined in becoming a design tool, a polyfunctional tool to address the true needs of humanity. Yes, getting dressed, but at the same time, guaranteeing living wages to all people involved in the supply chain, guaranteeing that if we're taking natural resources, we're also becoming regenerative by design, and we allow for a positive value to be reintroduced into the system. It needs to become a box that instead of taking positive outputs and giving us negative outputs, it not only creates balance, because that's offsetting. That's trying to minimize the damage. I take something and I plant a tree. That doesn't really work. First of all, because the damage you do by buying something today and the advantage of planting a tree today, they don't happen in the same lifespan, so a time frame. So those offsetting schemes don't work. We need to shift the industry to regenerative business models, circular business models, transparent business models, and first and foremost, transforming the product into a service. Going back to Victor Papanek's definition of design as a polyfunctional tool to address the true needs of humanity. How can clothing do that? That is the key answer that each designer has to put in his or her agenda today, not thinking of themselves or ourselves as designers of clothing, but as designers of new systems that collaborative in collaborating ecosystems of industries, all dedicated to the same goal, responding to the true needs of people. Right now, we're very far from that. I believe that in 10 years already, we will start to reshift and rethink our relationship with clothing, and new business models will come up that will empower us, enable us to truly relate to clothing in a different way. Made to order is a supply-driven economy business, which is the opposite of the demand-driven economy business upon which we've relied today.
Thank you so much. That was super informative. A lot of really great knowledge imparted on us there. So kind of on a different vein, how important is inclusivity to the School of RAD and also Vogue Italia and yourselves individually? Inclusivity, whether that means through skin, sexual preferences, perspectives in general. How important is that to you?
I start. Okay. Well, sorry. It's it's fundamental. It's the fact of. I think that obviously there are a lot of panels of inclusivity and diversity, and something that should already have happened without underlying these two themes. And magazines such as Vogue, in their DNA, they're always been very open, because Vogue has always looked at creativity and going over the boundaries without, looking at the skin color or whoever, it was in front. Because when you look at, creativity and talent, you look at the person, but at the same time, what's behind them. So it's something that always came naturally, the fact of being inclusive and representing all those genders that, we are all human beings. So I think this came kind of natural. Obviously, in the last years, this has been a big issue in countries, but also like in Italy. I mean, in Italy, sometimes they think we're racist or not racist. I think, unfortunately, racism exists everywhere. So I do think that the work is really a little bit, as I was saying before, also behind the scenes, because it's very, what unfortunately gave us, social networks is the fact of giving the liberty to everyone to say whatever they want to say. And this really created a hate over, over the social media, which everyone sees every day. So this is really something that kind of damaged, and probably nobody ever thought about it, because if you give, free words of expression, which is correct that everyone has, but then there's no limits. So I do think that going back to inclusivity, it's about understanding, where, in this case, I say Italy, where the limits are, where they're standing. And then, instead of attacking or just saying, oh, you're racist, or you did this, it's just, sitting down and having conversation, understand which is the right direction, how we can, behave in the right way. Or maybe it's like cultural bias, you think you're saying the right thing, but then you don't realize it, that you're saying it with a wrong tone, or using the wrong words without wanting to know that. So it always goes back, as Matteo said, to knowledge. Knowledge, culture, awareness. It's fundamental. So no, not everyone is obliged to know always everything about, every issue that we have in our world. But I do think that being inclusive is fundamental. And I have to say, like, for me, that I've been doing Vogue Talents project almost for 13 years, there's always been this kind of being open. The project was done because I was lucky enough that a door was open to me. So throughout the years, then I realized, going back, that the new generation didn't have nobody, opening the doors for them or giving them a platform. So for me, it was natural from day one that Vogue Talent was open to everyone. There was no boundaries and anything. So when I look back and I see that there was any kind of gender, color, always, because talent is everywhere. And then you look at the talent, and then you have the person, and the person, it's a person. So whether color, gender, it's natural then to have, everyone. And so this is something which obviously is very delicate. I just think that each of us have to learn every day, but it's something to, to do to group wise. And attacking and being, violent in words, I'm saying, it doesn't help.
Definitely. Thank you so much. So an incredible perspective to have and to spread throughout this world. Matteo, do you have any comments on this question as well?
For me, it's a personal topic. I learned on my skin the importance of working in an inclusive environment. I never usually say this, but yeah, on a platform, but yeah, I came out at work as gay, being gay, because I felt comfortable. For the first time, I came out to my HR managers before I did to my family, which is kind of funny, but because the work environment was so inclusive that it made me feel comfortable being who I was. And since then, I understood what inclusion really meant. And I made it as well as a promise to enable as much as I could whatever I did in my life, everyone to feel comfortable in their own shoes and being accepting of who they are, and also foster an environment that promoted inclusion so that we could drive forward progress, better ideas, more motivation, energy, and unite people under the same desire to catalyze change. That's WRAD is based on. With the same approach in mind in the School of WRAD, because you asked, the School of WRAD, which is a digital platform that we're launching in September with courses dedicated specifically to responsible design and responsible communication. One of the key pillars for us is, how do we make education more inclusive? So we looked at all of the barriers that today make it hard for millions of people out there to participate and be part of a narrative upon which the life of millions depends. And one very simple barrier that has been underestimated for years, including myself, was language. We're speaking in English here. We are privileged to be able to speak a language that is universally spoken in the business world. But there are millions of people, guys, in Europe, in even in places that you think are, I mean, by any means are considered very progressive countries that, you know, where English is not absolutely the first language, nor is a medium that can be used to absorb information and knowledge at a certain levels. You go outside of the city of Milan, and Sarah, I'm sure, can testify, you know, people are not comfortable with English. You go outside the center of Rome, same. So we were like, what if we start speaking in the national languages? How many more millions of people can we make active, you know, participants in the narrative to catalyze change? And we started translating it in Farsi, in Bengali, and Italian, and now we're in the process. It's a, you know, step forward, but the sale of each course starting from September will enable two things. One, to give free access to courses to students in underserved countries. We're working with Bangladesh, we're working with Vietnam, we're working in Iran, and at the same time, allowing us to fund the translation of the course contents in as many languages as possible, so we make sure that no one is excluded.
That's incredible. We're super excited to be partnering with you in September. I won't be leading that, but we'll have Sara in charge of that partnership. But we're super excited about that, partnering YFH members with some fashion students in Bangladesh and Vietnam. Super exciting stuff. Okay, so this is my final question, and then we'll open it up to the group. But how can we use social media as a means to spread this knowledge and, like you said, be inclusive and offer these kind of alternative forms for people to understand, whether it's language or visuals or whatever it is? How do you think social media plays a role in that for the both of you?
Sarah, myself?
No, yeah, sorry, usual. Well, I've noticed I've been using social media, but I never been like a fan. It's like, you know, going, you know, behind the wave. But I realized how important it could be if used in a very intelligent, smart way. And it's not just about putting yourself in front, because when I see creatives, I say the storytelling is about, you know, putting your face, putting yourself in front, which doesn't mean you want to be an influencer or become the boombastic on Instagram. It means putting your face and see, you know, what's behind, you know, your brand, your idea. And I have to say that in the last year with Matteo and other two friends of ours, colleagues, which are obviously into the fact of wanting, you know, to make a change, we created some Zoom calls about, you know, talking in a natural way of, you know, having hosts of, you know, designers that are successfully, you know, making the change, like Deserto with, you know, the cactus leather, or Orange Fiber that did the cotton from orange. And I mean, having simple and clear conversations, because I am sure that the people in this room, when you know, at the beginning, probably now you're interested enough, but at the beginning when you were saying, sustainability, wow, that's boring, or that's how can I understand, or where do I start, or what are we talking about? I mean, it's just a lot of questions, and in the end also very, very boring. So I think it's fundamental about the language, and this has to be really clear, because obviously studying to be responsible, it's a daily thing that you need to do every day, because it's something like, you know, it's when you study languages, you start studying, I don't know, Japanese or you know, or Arab. I mean, you can learn it, but if after a month you stop, you're going to lose it. So it's about that. It's about, you know, putting knowledge and culture about it. But what I figure out, it's the language. The simpler, but simple meaning not that it's not full of contents, but the way of speaking in a more approachable way about the other people, seeing us or others as normal people or people that can be approached, is fundamental. Because if not, it's we are back to square one. And I think really the power of Instagram is that, and we saw it also on the pandemic, because, well, obviously I work for Vogue and I have access, but I did a lot of Instagram lives with people that I've known but never had the chance even to talk for a minute because always busy, like from Naomi Campbell or Amber Valletta, that she's a ambassador, and having these, you know, people behind the screen in their home, or maybe the cat flies in or the child passes over. I mean, all these people at a certain point, they were approachable. They were approachable because they were in their home, they were not with makeup. They were normal people, which they have always been. But, you know, society brings them on a stage which is not inclusive for everyone. So I think the language is fundamental.
Thank you so much, Sara. That's really, really incredible. And super important, I agree. Definitely the approachable element is a key factor. Like authentic representation of the self is typically what I'm looking for when I'm following people. Matteo, do you have any comments on this?
I concur with Sara, 100%.
Lovely, thank you so much. Okay, so we'll open it to the group. If somebody has a question, maybe raise your hand, unmute yourself if you want to say anything. Tara, go ahead.
So I just had a quick question for the both of you. Out of like all the brands that we know today, the large ones, which brand do you think is doing like the best job in shifting to a more sustainable way of like producing clothing, if any? Because they already have like a lot of them are already traditional in the way that they do things. So sort of like which brand is doing the best, if you know, and then also kind of how they're doing that, because from doing things the same way for like ever, I imagine it must be very difficult.
Good question. Tough one as well. I see Sarah's kind of smiling. Right?
No. I was just smiling because after we answer, I would like to swap the question to you and ask to all of you, not that you need to answer all of you, which do you think it's the more responsible, sustainable run right now?
Great idea. Let's swap it.
Let's
swap. Do it.
because the questions to your answer, I think it's not simple. I mean, then Matteo can say it. So me as a direct question, I would say no one. But this doesn't mean that they're not working, because it takes time. It takes time. Yeah. Like, for example, groups such as Caring, that it's a huge group. It's working really in the back lines for a very huge project on biodiversity, and biodiversity is part of, you know, the planet. So we cannot always think about the problem of sustainability just about clothing, because sustainability is really 360 degrees. I suggest, I don't know, Matteo, if you saw it, but I was kind of not shocked, but unfortunately shocked, because it still happens, about this documentary on Netflix called Seaspiracy, which is on, you know, on the commercial about fishing, and that everyone speaks about the plastic in the ocean, which is a huge problem. But the fact of, you know, it's happening the same, what's happening in Amazonia is happening in the sea. So it's also about that, always going back to awareness and to communication. So for me right now, it's no one, but they're all working behind the scenes to make it happen. And probably there would be a brand, if yes, it's someone that has started doing this since many years, but I leave it to Matteo. But then we are asking a question to you.
We're swapping.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I agree with Sara that the thing, Tara, is that the business model, or actually this transcends the fashion industry. It has to do with the way our economic system, you know, is designed today, which is linear and is based on the lie that incremental growth and incremental profits are possible. And this is and this is clearly not true. And also, the business model today is not designed to factor in the true cost of materials, resources that have been taken for granted for so many years. Clean water, clean air, the true value of people. So who is doing this right today? There are brands that are taking a huge step forward. You know, Sarah mentioned Caring, you know, the big groups, they're all doing something. No one is there yet because the issue is larger than just one brand alone. I like what in the sportswear field, brands like REI, for example, are doing, thinking in a systemic way, you know, with their opt outside campaigns and really pushing people to reconnect with nature so that they would respect it. These are the kind of communications can play that are then backed up by investments in the design process that I think are doing it right.
Okay, well, thank you. I know that that was going to be kind of like a tricky one, but I was just curious, like if a brand had came to mind and like Sara said Care and you said REI, like I was curious because flipping it back to me, like what I would have said is no brand comes to mind. And that's sort of why I asked, like there's not a brand that if I'm looking like at a list of like all these different places, I'm not just like, oh, well, that one's sustainable. So there is nothing like that. And when you Google it, there's a different answer on everything because everyone's just trying to put out their name for we're sustainable because we made, like you said early in the talk, this one item that helps for water, this one pair of pants that is going to save a tree or stuff like that. So thank you.
And there's also methodologies issues, you know, what are we rating? What does sustainable mean? And how do you say this brand is more sustainable than this one on the basis of what? What are we comparing? A comparative analysis on sustainability requires to really get down to specific KPIs, different pillars. You cannot even comparing fibers. I know it's a beautiful exercise that a lot of brands are doing to claim sustainability. That's scientifically impossible. How do you compare cotton with polyester? There's no, you know, valid LCA that adopts the same methodologies that compares the same on the fibers on the same conditions. You cannot even compare organic cotton to standard cotton unless you're talking about the cotton that comes from the same region with the same amount of rainfall, with the same, soil conditions. So you see how difficult and systemic the complex the issue is. So we really have to be careful when, you know, we use that adjective sustainable.
What are your thoughts on Stella McCartney and the Milo mushroom leather?
Stella started, working in the field or communicating responsibility before many other brands. I think Sarah knows it better than I do on this perspective. I'll get to the end part of the question, the mushroom leather. Clearly the business model isn't perfect. What I've always admired about Stella McCartney, at least I looked up to her years ago, and from a communication perspective, she had always been really transparent, saying, I've achieved this, I still have this much left to do. She wasn't coming out or saying I'm the most sustainable brand in the world and my shoes are going to save the world. I think a lot of materials that she has used, I would have never used, and they think they're responsible. I don't. And that's the difference in opinions. But other than that, I appreciated her transparency since day one.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree what Matteo says. I mean, I think she's an example of the fact of putting herself in a challenge, which was not easy because obviously, having a brand, having the name, but I think it's very important. That's how everything starts, because we don't even think I think the problem now about being responsible is that big brands do not communicate because they need to be perfect, because obviously there's going to be always that part of controversial, because it's not that you wake up and you're responsible. So I think that's a little bit the main problem. And what Stella did, she started, I would say 15 years ago, probably 20, and she started from a personal not issue, but for a personal choice of style in her life of being vegan. And so then from there she said, okay, what I can do with my brand. So I think her paths have been kind of natural and also positive thinking. Then, as Matteo said, probably she has used materials that were thought to be, responsible, and they were not. And this is, this is always going back to education and knowledge. And I was talking with this girl last week, and he said, which is the problem, going back to the fact of inclusion in big brands, inclusion, which means Black people, Asians, or, not Black, not white people. It's the main problems of the brands are the HRs, because the HRs do not have the knowledge and the culture of what's happening outside. And they're still, about the fact of doing how do you say, a conversation with a future, someone that could work for their brand in a very classic way of 20 years ago, that you just see, the CV, if you like the person or not, and you wouldn't see behind. So I think it has to happen also, in the big companies. So Stella, I do think that she has been an example, for everyone. And look at also Vivienne Westwood. I mean, Vivienne Westwood, she's almost, I think, almost in her 90s. And she's been, she's been doing it for the last 30 years probably. So she was, almost in her 60s. So it's someone that she uses the voice, and using a voice, it's fundamental right now to give, the positive message. Then behind, it's complicated. And as I said, there's nothing wrong to say that you need to learn and you need to improve. I think this is what I like of my job, because after 25 years in the industry, I'm still learning and I still not knowing things. And this is, I think it's the best way of, kind of getting more passionate and willing to do things.
Yes, I agree entirely. Judith, I saw that your hand was up first, and then Sarah, will go to you.
Yeah, so in kind of like all of this complexity, what can like a normal consumer, such as, like a college student, what can we do kind of today, perhaps, that would work, like would benefit sustainable fashion?
Yeah. Love your clothes, meaning literally fall in love with what you buy. I know it's easy. Sometimes we see a price tag that's so inviting, so we just buy it and we don't even try it on. We're like, well, are they going to return it, or we're going to keep it there? And raise your hand if you've done it at least once. I have. Everyone has. It's okay. There you go. It happens. That's what the industry wants. That's what we need to be careful with. That's when we cannot control what brands do. We can control ourselves, and we need to think, twice about what we're purchasing. Are we going to keep it for a long time? If we make an instant purchase and compulsive purchase, okay, let's make it last. Let's capitalize on the environmental and social cost of it. Let's dilute that cost over time. That's the most important thing, number one, to do. Second, you can buy, it sounds as cliche as possible, but secondhand vintage is the most responsible option we have, rather than virgin clothing that consume new resources. That's always great. So new business models that help you access great vintage clothing. There are many platforms out there today, especially in the US. You have some great ones. Take advantage of it. Third, if you're buying new things, make sure you're looking at the full picture. If you see a big claim, let's use the Adidas Stan Smith, the green, whatever, because I'm talking about it these days. Go beyond the claim. It's like, okay, they're saying these are the sustainable Stan Smith. What does sustainable means to Adidas? And then if you find facts that can substantiate that claim, go for it. If, like in this case, there's, okay, you're still puzzled as like what is exactly is that makes it sustainable? Is it social dimension? Do they pay a living wage to the workers? Yes or no? They're not telling you. Lack of transparency, go away. Materials, are they recyclable? Are they designed to really endure and be durable? Are they going to, am I putting toxic plastic against my skin, or something that I can breathe in and feel fine in, and not having to worry about body odor, because polyester increases body odor? That's gross, so we all know that. So these are the kind of questions you need to ask, and it sucks, because I would love to tell you, go into a store, be happy, fall in love with the clothing, and go home and trust the brands. Right now, as responsible customers, we cannot allow us to do that yet.
Okay, because a lot of it is like, I understand that when certain brands do kind of tell me something of like they are being sustainable in this way or another, I guess I don't trust myself to know enough to know if certain claims are right or wrong. And like, yes, I, listened to you today, but
yeah, there's still many questions.
Yeah.
There's platforms like Good on You, which is a good rating app for brands, and they have a good methodology in place. So whenever you're in doubt, Google the name of the big brand and go to Good on You, and you see what they're doing. Pretty much, they rate the brands. Another great tool is that only deal with transparency and not with full responsibility. So to see how transparent a brand is, and usually, not always, but usually the less transparent, the more stuff you have to hide. Another great tool with that is the Fashion Revolution Transparency Index, which is available on the website fashionrevolution.org. So with these two tools, Good on You as the app, and I think Fashion Revolution, that is a good start of guideline for you, with the big brands at least. I don't know if Sarah, you have anything else in mind, I think.
Yeah, I just sent the link for Good on You in the chat if anybody wants to look at that. And then Sarah, go ahead and ask your question. Thank you for those responses. Thank you, Judith, for your question.
Okay, so this is a question for the both of you, and it's a bit of a two-part question. But the first is, do you both believe that the first step towards a sustainable future is primarily education? And if so, how can we get this information out to the masses and to more and more people?
Well, yeah, for sure. It's fundamental because, if you have to think that in most of the schools, and I'm saying even primary schools or secondary schools or high schools, there's nothing. Now I'm not. I informed myself maybe last year or something. There's not such as lessons or space dedicated to be responsible. So it starts from there, because if I was in my school and you did, from kindergarten to 18th grade, and we studied always geography, biology, physics, chemistry, art, and all those themes and everything. And instead, since you're 5th grade, you have your sustainable awareness course. When you're 18, you come out with another mentality. So culture and knowledge is fundamental. And on the other way, since it's a big world and we also have the problem of people that do not have access to knowledge, you have the School of RAD that has the solution. So I think it's important. It's our fundamentals. Knowledge and education has always been important, now more than ever, but even 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's but more than ever now, because I think that already as a new generation, which is a younger generation than already you who are young, are very conscious and also very pissed off with our generation, because we've done a lot of damages, but at this moment it's useless to get angry of what has been done, and you have to look forward. So education is primary, absolutely. And then you have to also be a very passionate and think forward person, and just don't look straight, but always lift your head, look around, and be curious. This is also very important.
Thank you so much. This will be our last question, Antonio. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Matteo. It's great to see you again, and it's also a pleasure to meet Sara, especially as a big fan of Franca's. I was going to ask you both a question on the status quo, and specifically, does it differ? Is there a difference between the status quo in Italy and the US, especially despite globalization and however interwoven the international status quo might be?
I missed, I think, the key part of your question. Is there a difference between and then I lost connection, and the US? You wanted to say Italy?
Okay, the status quo in Italy and the status quo in the US. Am I cutting out a little bit?
Then perfect now. Great question. I'm half American, half Italian, so I know both cultures pretty well. I grew up in both, and from an approach, and a consumeristic approach, yes, there's a difference, big one. From a design perspective, there's a difference. You know, Italy and clothing, Italy and design have come from a different place, a heritage that goes back literally to 2,000 years of history. And I think from a design perspective here in Italy, the status quo is very much rooted on preserving and perpetuating traditions and heritage through clothing. The US has an advantage, a huge advantage from its capability to scale communication and inspire people at a global level like no one else ever been able to do. Therefore, what I say, if we take some design, models from Italy, take them to New York and work within the US to use communication as a powerful tool to inspire people to really adopt more responsible behaviors rather than pushing people to buy more services and goods that nobody needs, then that will make a win-win scenario for all. And from a consumer perspective, there are differences for sure. There are differences, but there are huge differences also in the United States. It's hard, it's very hard to make this comparative analysis. The world is very much polarized. The same differences you see and feel in the US every single day that I feel, because my dad's from Seattle, and we have that in Italy too. I think you guys are in a country with 300 million, more than 300 million people. There are 60 million people over here. We're as big as the state of California. So it's different to make a comparative analysis, but for sure the culture of consumption is different.
Awesome, thank you so much, Sara. Do you have anything to add?
No, I'm fine, thank you. No, everything I think was told.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, well, I will wrap up the speaker event. Thank you both so much for coming and for everybody who attended today and for all your questions. I hope you feel inspired to live a little bit better. Have a lovely rest of your weekend. Thank you, everyone.
No, thank you
guys.
Thank you, Alessandra. Thank you to all Yale Group and Fashion, and talk soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good luck on your midterms. Ciao.
Exactly. Ciao.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Ciao, Tara. Ciao, Antonio. Ciao, Sarah. Ciao, everybody. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm gonna end the meeting.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye, everyone.